Good morning, all of you.
Good morning, sir.
So, how are you?
Fine, sir.
We have already completed John Milton's On His Blindness. We have discussed the poem.
Yes, sir.
Now, as you asked me to discuss critical appreciation of the poem, so today we shall be discussing critical appreciation. Okay, but before I do that, I would like to read the poem once again, so that you have a clear idea of the poem. On His Blindness. When I consider how my light is spent before half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is death to hide, lodged with me useless, though my soul more bent to serve therewith my Maker, and present my true account, lest he returning chide. Doth God exact day labor, light denied? I fondly ask, but patience to prevent. That murmur soon replies, God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. His estate is kingly. Thousands at his bidding speed, and post over land and ocean without rest. They also serve who only stand and wait. The last line is very important and it has become almost a proverb. They also serve who only wait, stand and wait. They also serve who only stand and wait. Okay? So, my dear students, this is the 19th sonnet of Milton, which was written after the poet had gone completely blind at the age of 44. Now, see, on his blindness, this poem is autobiographical in nature. He is talking about his own blindness. He wrote this poem when he had got blind. At what age he got blind? At the age of 44. And the poem is written in Petrarchan rhyme scheme. Do you remember the Petrarchan rhyme scheme? Well, you know, this is a sonnet. There are two kinds of sonnets. While we were discussing sonnets by William Shakespeare, we had discussed Petrarchan sonnet as well. We have two kinds of sonnets: Shakespearean sonnet and Petrarchan sonnet. Shakespearean sonnet is called as the English sonnet, and the Petrarchan sonnet is called as the Italian sonnet. Why? Because Petrarch was an English poet. So, just to remember, to recall, I am writing the rhyme scheme of Shakespearean as well as Petrarchan sonnet. Shakespearean sonnet. This sonnet is Miltonic sonnet. Okay, but Milton has written, John Milton, although was an English poet, he is not written on the rhyme scheme of Shakespeare. He has followed Petrarchan's pattern. Okay, so this here we have AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF, and GG. Okay, now this one is a quatrain. Quatrain is a stanza of 4 lines. You have second quatrain, stanza of 4 lines again. Then the third quatrain, stanza of 4 lines again. And at the end you have a couplet. You have a couplet, 2 lines. That way you have 14 lines. Even in Petrarchan sonnet, or say Miltonic sonnet for that matter, you have 14 lines, but the division is different. Here you have 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 2. There you have octave plus sestet. So we are talking about that the poem is written on the Petrarchan rhyme scheme. So what is the rhyme scheme here? A B B A, A B B A, A B B A. Now how many lines are there? 8 lines. A B B A, A B B A. And you know, after 8 lines you have a turn. We call it volta or caesura. There is a turn. You may say a turning point. Like you know, you have one thought, you may have you have a problem here, and you have solution of the problem in the second part, which is called as sestet. And what is the rhyme scheme of Milton's sestet for that matter? C, D, E, C, D, E, C, D, E again. But you know, like here, as far as this part is concerned, octave, poets follow it blindly. Means they follow the same rhyme scheme, but here they may vary. Yet this is called as a Petrarchan sonnet because of the division. It may be CDE or DCE. But here, the sonnet which we are talking about, On His Blindness by Milton, we have this rhyme scheme in the sonnet. Okay, structurally in the octave, the poet presents the conflict and the solution is given in the sestet. Okay, the rhyme scheme of the poem is ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. The poem is, as I told you, intensely personal, autobiographical in nature, and it also redefines the poet's relation to God and his fate. You know, Milton was highly religious, just as Donne became towards the later half of his life, or say for that matter, John Hopkins became towards the later half of his life. You know, this is something very natural, that people do not remain so worldly in the second half of their lives. They become religious, they become spiritual. So same was the case with Milton also. Besides, Milton had gone blind also. So this poem is autobiographical nature, this is personal nature, and it defines Milton's faith, okay, unflinching faith in God. Well, Milton's poetry was characterized by Christian ideals, and his sonnets celebrate the same. You know, he was a true Christian. He had an unflinching faith in Christianity. He had unflinching faith in God, but his faith was slightly shaken when he became blind and the world appeared to be dark and white to him. And this is very natural. You know, like when you lose your eyesight, because you know, without your vision, you can't see the world. The entire world appears to you dark and white. So for Milton, the entire world appears to him dark and white, and the faith was, it flickered. His faith flickered. I wouldn't say that he lost his faith, but his faith was shaken. He felt a conflict, a tension, which got resolved gradually by accepting the will of God. Okay? Because you know, all true Christians, or say all true religious men for that matter, may they be Hindus, Muslims, Christians, or of any religion for that matter, okay, they all believe in will of God. If they believe in will of God, that means they are religious. So Milton, towards the later half of his life, believed in the will of God. Well, the poem On His Blindness, as I told you, is an autobiographical sonnet in which the poet expresses his feelings as a blind man. We just read the poem together, and you must have observed that he is talking about his blindness. In the beginning of the poet thinks that he will not be able to serve God as his sight is gone. He will not be able to serve, means he will not be able to write poems. He will not be able to praise the Almighty. Why? Because he has no eyesight. How would he praise? He wouldn't be able to observe the objects of nature, the hills, the mountains, the trees, the flowers, butterflies. Means the colorful world appeared to be completely dark and white to him. However, as the poem develops, he begins to believe that God wants him to keep working, in spite of the fact that his job caused him to lose his eyesight. Okay? Because you know, when you are all the time reading, like you know, we have nice electricity now. We have, say, LED lights and all, but in Milton's time this was not so. They were using lanterns and all. And say if you are burning the midnight lamp, and say this you are doing for ages together, then what happens? You lose your eyesight. So I don't know, he was a voracious reader, no doubt, but he lost his eyesight somehow, and that is why the faith was shaken in the Almighty. But he could regain the faith in the later half of his life. In the end, he is assured that he is serving God like the angels, who just wait for the orders of God. The last line, they also serve who only stand and wait. Who only stand and wait. Angels, they have an unflinching faith in the Almighty. Well, the poem has a number of biblical references. Whenever you read a religious poem, you have biblical references there in the poem. Here too you have biblical references, for example, Talent and all. So the poem has a number of biblical references that depict poet's strong belief in God. When the poet realized how he had become blind even before he had completed half of his life, means he was only 44 when he got blind. So he was very unhappy, he was very sad, very disappointed. He thought that his creative talent would be useless. This thought depressed him. Okay? This thought disappointed him. Why? Why was he disappointed? Because he didn't know how would he praise God. How would he write poems? Because God had sent him to this world to write poems. So he was reminded of the allusion from the Bible in which there is an unprofitable servant who did not use the talent given to him. You must have seen, observed here, I read it again. Before half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is dead to hide. Now the word talent, the word talent, my dear students, is written with capital T. Now here there is a pun on talent. There is a pun on talent. Talent means coin, and the reference is biblical. Okay, Matthew 25. Talent. So talent means coin, and it also means God's gift. It also means God's gift. So when the poet refers to talent, he identifies himself with the same servant in Matthew 25 who buries the money given to him by his master in the earth rather than investing it wisely. Now this is given in your book. Well, yeah, talent, if you see it here, see it's given ability, God's gift, also a monetary unit. This is the meaning of talent. The reference is to the parable of the talents, Matthew 25, where a man gave the talents, that is coins, one to servant, two to another, and to a third, and one to a third. While the first two multiplied their money, the third buried his coin under the earth. On the master's return, the first two were praised, while the third was scolded. So, similarly, God has bestowed upon him the talent of writing in his praise. Okay, poems in God's praise. The poet, being a God-fearing person, is prompted to think that it is almost like death to him if he buries his talent like the servant in the Matthew 25 of the Bible. What does the servant do? Servant buries the coin under the earth. Now he did not invest it. So the money did not multiply. Same is the case with Milton. Milton thinks so. The case is not so with Milton, but Milton thinks so. Okay, because he is disappointed. That is why he is a little melancholic. Okay, he has become pessimistic, and that's why he is thinking like that. Otherwise, there is whole lot of difference between the two. The poet, being a God-fearing person, who is a God-fearing person? Person who believes in God, person who is religious. So Milton was highly God-fearing. Milton is prompted to think that it is almost like death to him if he buries his talent. Like whom? Like the servant in Matthew 25 of the Bible. However, unlike the servant, the poet has no choice of his own, as he finds himself incapable of reading and writing because of absolute blindness. Why is Milton disappointed? He is disappointed, the poet is disappointed because he cannot see. Okay? The world appears to him dark and wide, as he told you in the beginning of the poem. He compares his inability to use his talent to the physical, mental and spiritual death. He thinks it's almost like a death. Although he always intends to serve God and to justify the ways of God to men, to sing of God's greatness and also to present his true account.